Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Financial Deviant Podcast. Family, I'm glad to have you back with me. Hope you've enjoyed the first few episodes and got a lot more great information coming your way. So today, I want to start off just by talking a little bit about some things that happened when I was younger. You know, growing up, I played a lot of baseball. Ton of it. And, turned into a pretty good player. Got some recognition for my on-the-field exploits. But the very beginning of that journey was T-ball. Back then, we called it Cap League. So in T-ball, it's just like it says, you hit the ball off the tee, and a lot of times you got kids running into each other and, throwing the ball over the fence and all kinds of fun stuff going on. Well, let me say this. We didn't do that because we were pretty good players. But in T-ball, they didn't really focus on the score. As a matter of fact, there was one or two people that coached both teams, and everybody got to hit in each inning. But after each game, we would go out, both teams, to basically mid or short center field and kind of debrief. The coach would talk about how things went and which things went well, and maybe some things we needed to work on. But it was kind of funny, and I was thinking about this the other day. As he was talking, there was only one thing on everybody's mind because there was not a scoreboard that was visible to everybody. The focus was not on keeping the score. The focus was just on playing, honing your skills, getting better, getting instruction. So who won the game was not necessarily the focus, at least of the adults. But every game, everybody was asking, who won? Who won? What's the score? And you could tell the coach was really trying not to focus on that, but he knew that he was fighting a losing battle. So he would finally have to say, well, it's not really important, but the Dodgers won, or Coward won, or whoever. At that very age, that very young age, we wanted to know what the score was, who was the winner, and who was the loser. I know we're just supposed to be getting better out here and just, it's all about participation, but we wanted to know who won the game. And, in personal finance, although it's not exactly the same, there is a scoreboard that every person, regardless of where you are in your financial journey, can utilize. Although with this scoreboard, you're not competing against another person. This scoreboard serves to just kind of show you or convey to you or communicate to you whether or not you're going in the right direction. For me, that scoreboard is what we would call the net worth statement. Now, let me, from the very outset, correct something that I think a lot of people have on their minds when you mention net worth statement. Many people assume that is only for people who have a lot of money, who are literally already wealthy. And that could not be any further from the truth. Net worth is simply a calculation of what you own minus what you owe. It includes your assets, which is things like your checking account, your savings account, any securities, any stocks or bonds, real estate, market value of your automobiles. It's all of those things that are included in your assets. So once you total all of that up, and then you subtract your liabilities, that includes things like your mortgage, your credit card balances, your car loans, your student loans, any debt you have, anything that you owe somebody else. That is your net worth statement. And sometimes it can make us all very uncomfortable when we try to figure out what that net worth is for the first time. Sometimes people don't want to go to the doctor because the doctor might put their finger on a particular spot that causes you to yell, because there's pain. It causes you pain. And they'd rather not really have that diagnosed. They just rather live with it. They don't want their doctor to literally put their finger on what's wrong with them. And we can come away with the diagnosis that we'd rather not know about. That preference for blissful ignorance is the reason that some people don't really want to get into calculating their net worth, because sometimes the picture can be pretty ugly. And I will tell you, I can remember the first time I did a net worth statement for us years ago. And I was including all kinds of stuff. I was trying to estimate the value of the furniture in the house, the bed, the sofa. I was thinking about rings. I was thinking about kitchen utensils and everything. I was trying to include in that to make my assets look as big as I possibly could. And in my mind, it's like, okay, I know this is the first time doing this, but I don't want to look bad to myself, and I want to feel good about myself. So I'm going to include some stuff in here that I might be cheating myself a little bit, but I'm going to do it because, I need to feel good. And I mean, I'm talking about possibly lawnmowers, edgers, all kinds of stuff I was including in the asset category. I wanted that net worth statement to look as good as possible. Now, that's fine if you use those same things consistently, because the idea is to see if you're headed in the right direction. If you're only looking at the assets that you have, so many people can mistakenly think that equates to wealth, and it doesn't. Guys might remember in an earlier episode, I talked about all these high income families that live paycheck to paycheck. If you just look from the outside, you would probably assume that, boy, they probably have a pretty decent net worth. On the other hand, it's strange. I just thought about this. It just popped in my head. I was reading today about a gentleman who was a janitor, a manual laborer, didn't make a ton of money at all, that retired, a multimillionaire, and donated all this money to all these medical organizations. But if you looked at him, you would not have guessed it at all. But he learned about investing. He bought blue chip stocks. He was consistent. He bought and he held them for long periods of time and didn't try to get in and out of the market, and died a multimillionaire. Now, he might have gone a little bit to the extreme, because it looks like he didn't hardly spend anything on himself. I'm not recommending that at all. But the point is, sometimes when we say, boy, I can't do that because I don't have this, and every time you say that, there's somebody who has exactly what you have, who have proven that the way you thought was not correct. And it's happened to me a number of times. You got your assets totaled, you got your liabilities that you subtract, and that final number you come up with is your net worth statement. And I mentioned the first time I did it, and I'm going to tell you, I was extremely disappointed, because it forced me to look in the mirror and to make a determination, or to evaluate myself. And quite frankly, it wasn't a great evaluation. So why is it important to know what that is? Or why can that be a wonderful tool to help all of us get on the right track? Well, just imagine if you did a net worth statement, say once a year. You don't do this every month or some people just do it once a year just to get a progress report on themselves. So imagine if you did a net worth statement for 3 years in a row, and each year your net worth was lower than it was before. What would you do? Well, you would probably take a look and say, okay, do I have too much debt? Am I not investing in enough assets? Am I spending too much on things that bring no value? Frivolous things, exactly why is my net worth going down 3 years in a row? So it would force us to take a hard look at our situation. On the other hand, what if you saw it go up every year? I mean, that would be a great thing. I mean, you would say, okay, I'm doing something right. Again, it just forces us to take a bird's eye view of our entire financial situation. And what if you did it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and what if the first time you did it, your net worth was negative? Well, that will be a clear indication that your first order of business probably should be to get rid of some debt. The ideal way to improve your net worth, if you think about it, and you're probably already ahead of me, is to pay off high interest debt. High interest debt is, as we already know, is a killer. And at the same time, well, first of all, let me say this with the debt. There are two primary ways that very often is recommended to help people to pay off debt. You got the debt snowball and you've got the debt avalanche. The debt snowball is both of these. You line all your debts up, smallest to largest. And with the snowball, you tick off that first debt and you pay the minimum payment on everything else. You pay off that first debt, and then whatever that amount was, you roll that, snowball that into your next largest debt. And you continue to pay a minimum payment on everything else until you take care of that one. And then you roll the value of both of those two debts you just paid off into the next one. That's called a debt snowball. The other one is called a debt avalanche, where you just simply pay off the ones based on which one has the largest interest rate. Both are great. I don't really even have a strong preference for which one I think is the better. I personally use the snowball to get the results I was looking for. So again, the way to improve that overall financial picture, pay off high interest debt, car loans, furniture, that money you use you borrowed to buy a Snickers, whatever it is, pay off the high interest loan and at the same time make more money. Those are the two components. And not only make more money, but make more money and have that money work on your behalf by investing in income producing assets. It might be something like getting a promotion. You might change companies. There are a number of ways. You might get a part-time job, mowing grass. You might start an online business. There are a number of ways to make more money. But again, if you can pay off the debt as you're making more money, that is the ideal and the quickest way to improve your net worth. Just think about if you got an example here. Say your primary home is valued at $250,000 and you got some investments that total $100,000 and you got automobiles that valued at $25,000. Those are your assets. And then if you look at liabilities, they include things like $100,000 mortgage. So your home is valued at $250,000, but you have a $100,000 mortgage on it. And the other liability is you have a $10,000 car loan. So in that situation, you add up the asset, $250,000 home value, $100,000 in a portfolio, and $25,000 cars. You add those up, and then you subtract the liabilities, which is the $100,000 mortgage that you have on that house, and the $10,000 car loan you have on that car, and the net worth comes out to $265,000. But think about if, say, 5 years later, that same couple, their financial position changes. Now the resident is valued at $225,000. The investment portfolio is $120,000. They've saved $20,000 in a savings account, and the automobile and other assets are $15,000. And then the mortgage balance for that couple 5 years later is $80,000. Their car loan is zero. because it was paid off. And then based on those numbers, that couple's net worth has gone from $265,000 to $300,000, right? Because it's gone up $35,000, despite the fact that the value of the house and the car was down. The big thing they did was they paid off some debt and they increased their savings. That's how your net worth can adjust or be adjusted based on paying off debt and really in that situation, paying off debt and saving more resulted in a $35,000 difference from 1 year to 5 years later. I wanted to do this particular episode because, again, it just gives us a bird's eye view of what our finances look like, how we're doing, are we headed in the right direction? And I stress very strongly, this is not about comparing yourself to anybody else. This is a roadmap for you. It gives you an idea of how you're doing. It gives you an idea of the things that you need to work on. Nobody else has to tell you this. Nobody else has to get in your business. Nobody else has to make a recommendation. You can look at this, and if your net worth is the same 5 years from now as it is today, you know you got something to do. It could mean that either a number of things. Could it mean you had a job issue, if you lost your job, or it could mean, which is very often is the case, you just borrow money and your liabilities column grew faster than your asset column. But regardless of what the situation is, it gives up an opportunity to look at. And I will tell you, for my younger listeners, it is not unusual for young people to have a negative net worth. I am fully aware that starting out, especially when you start out with a young family and then when children come along, they call that the messy middle. You should not feel bad, but you should be aware of unnecessary spending and unnecessary debt. It doesn't mean your financial picture is going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that you're just going to have it all together, because very often you will not. I did not at that stage in my life. My wife and I did not have just all the pieces in place. So I wanted to say that I don't want the younger folks that are listening to be, disappointed or say, man, I'm messing up. No, the point of this is to measure this and track this over time. The idea is not that you have it all together now, but over time, as it serves as sort of a roadmap for you and your family to know how you're doing. So it's just like when we were playing T-ball, we wanted to know what the score was. We wanted to know who won. So the net worth statement is just telling you, am I winning? Am I staying the same? Or am I losing ground? That's it. So I really hope this short episode has given you something to think about. I think it will be great if you would sit down. If you haven't done it, sit down, take the time. If you're married, sit down with your spouse, get a pen and paper. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, pen and paper, and list your assets. And I'm going to recommend you keep it simple. Keep it to your home, keep it to your vehicles and your money, whether it be savings, checking, any investments, your 401k, your 403b, your 457b, whatever retirement account you have, use that. And it just hit me. There's one thing that I know people struggle with, and that is if you're one of those fortunate people or those blessed people who have a pension, how do you include the pension in your net worth statement? And I'm not going to answer that this time. I'll probably answer that down the road because it's not as straightforward and simple as some would like it to be. But we'll talk about that probably in the very near future. So for the time being, don't include your pension if you get one in your net worth statement. Do it without that. It's not going to hurt. The idea is to see and check your progress as time goes along. I hope that's going to be very helpful to you, but do take a second, sit down, put together that first net worth statement if you haven't already done it, and see what it looks like. And what you'll be looking at is a mirror that'll give you a pretty good idea of where you are and a great idea of where you need to go from here. So again, thank you guys for listening. This is the Financial Deviant saying see you next time and have a blessed day.